It's a Monday. Thank you so much for joining us here at 110sportsmedia.com/live or on Twitch at twitch.tv/the Jmull Show, wherever you are watching, wherever you might be. Thanks so much for joining us on a Monday. You know, we got a lot to get to today. We got a lot to get to on all fronts. We got some college basketball news this morning that is really quite jarring. Some light being shed on the Penn State men's basketball program. So we'll get to that, and it's really not good, and it's certainly something that needs to be discussed, and we'll get to that in a little while. We're also going to talk NBA restart quite a bit today. We're going to say we got 5 questions surrounding the restart, which is a little bit more fun to talk about than usual. We're also going to talk Bryson DeChambeau, the PGA Tour player who is built like a linebacker now, and just won his first PGA Tour event since the restart. So 4 events since the PGA Tour has come back. He's placed top 10 in all 4, won this one. So we'll talk a little bit about him, some of his stats, and why his science experiment is working so well. But we got a lot to get to. Let's jump in right now, and we're going to start with something that is really unfortunate. Like, I really wish this wasn't the case. But we've officially crossed the point where it makes less and less sense every day for the NBA to return in the form of a bubble in Orlando. And I want to talk about some stats in particular, but first of all, it's clear that this doesn't scare the NBA enough to stop the season, because if it did, they would have already done it. So it's clear that unless it continues to, unless we're getting 30,000 new cases a day in Florida, which, by the way, I don't think is out of the realm of possibility that we get to that point at some point here in the next few weeks. That's a lot of cases, but we'll talk about the increase here in a little bit. But unless something internal happens, something drastic happens, 100 players get sick in a 7-day stretch, this is going to continue to go on, and it continues to make less and less sense that that's the case. Because let me throw some numbers at you. First of all, let's start with the country. On July 5th, 53,000 new cases. July 5th, 51,933 new cases in the United States on July 5th. Today's July 6th, my birthday. I'll wait for everybody to say happy birthday to me. But July 5th, 51,933. July 4th, 53,213. July 3rd, 54,271. This was supposed to get better, right? And for a while it did. There's no debating that. In the middle of May, we got as low as May 19th. There was only 13,227 new cases in the country. The peak in early April, in late April, where this was supposed to be as bad as it was going to get, we were going to see the peak. It was going to start to flatten. This is the point where everybody and their mother in New York City is getting sick, and it's really just one of the darkest couple weeks the country has seen in recent memory. 35,000. There were 38,509 on April 26th, and 35,386 on April 11th. That was the peak, when this was supposed to be horrible. And don't get me wrong, and I'm not belittling that at all. It was horrible, and it continues to be horrible, and it continues to be horrible that people won't wear their mask, and I will continue to harp on that on this show every single day. Wear your mask. If you aren't, then you need to figure it out. 35,000 cases was the peak in April when this was supposed to be the worst. There were 53,000 this weekend. 53,000. And we're continuing to go on. March 12th, when the NBA season officially was postponed. March 12th, 291 cases. There were 20 in Florida that day on March 12th. 20. In all of Florida, there were 20. July 4th in Florida, 11,000. Yesterday, over 10,000 new cases. Just yesterday. You probably hadn't gotten to 10,000 total cases. It took weeks to get to 10,000 total cases in Florida. In April and May. 11,458 on July 4th, 10,059 on July 5th. And it'll be the same today. And it'll be the same tomorrow. And 2 weeks from now, July 25th, excuse me, that's not the right math. July 19th, somewhere around there, 2 weeks past July 4th, where everybody seems to think that COVID-19 is taking a holiday and that none of this matters for the day, it'll go up even more. Drastically. 5 days. 10 days. Before the NBA is supposed to return. We're 5 days away from the NBA supposed to be returning as a whole to Orlando. The entire NBA is about to go to the bubble. 5 days. And 2 of the last 3 days, the last 3 days in this country have been far and away the most cases ever in this country in one day. Far and away. According to Statista.com. And the last 2 days, the last 4 days in Florida, far and away the most cases in Florida in one day. And we continue to move forward. And this is why it's clear that it doesn't matter to the NBA how many cases are going around the outside. And yes, there's probably an argument that the safest place in Orlando, once the players get to Orlando, is going to be where they are in Disney World. There's probably an argument for that. But you know what's way safer than Orlando? Their homes. And it's not even close. Let's all get on a charter plane together. If one person gets on that charter plane positive and they don't realize it, they're going to infect everybody. Everybody. It's an enclosed space if you're the Lakers and you're about to be on a plane together for 6 hours to fly to Orlando, if one person gets on that plane positive and they don't know it, everybody on the plane positive. And just like that, the Lakers are wiped out for a little while. Is that really worth it? Clearly the NBA thinks it's worth it, and we've talked about this before, because if the goal was to keep players as safe as humanly possible, then this would be happening at all. And every day, that point gets reinforced that that's not what the NBA is most worried about. And to be clear, I don't even fault them necessarily for that, because if they want to get the season done, that has to be the way the priorities are. The season has to be the first priority, or it's never going to happen. And then followed closely is player safety, and you're going to do everything you can to make sure that player safety is where it is. The risk is as low as it can possibly be. But in Orlando, right now in this country, in Florida, there's no place that gets anywhere close to as safe it is if you just stay home. No matter what you do. Do you think they're going to be wearing masks around the Orlando campus? No. Media members might, but you're not going to, it's just not going to happen. And then you're going to have people working, the Walt Disney crew members who are coming and going and not getting tested every day, and those people are going to be exposed. And even if they're not actually directly talking and standing in front of the players, they're cleaning hotel rooms, they're cleaning plates, they're doing the dishes, they're doing the things that the players will then, somebody comes in and changes the sheets on your bed in your hotel room. If that person has COVID-19, those sheets are infected and you've been exposed. And it's almost impossible to make sure that to keep track of that. It makes less and less sense every single day. Less and less sense. 20,000 more cases than the highest mark in April, when it was supposed to be the worst time. It's just another point that it's clear that the thing that's changed the most from April to today is not COVID-19. Obviously, I mean, people who were wearing a mask then who aren't wearing a mask now, I would love to hear their justification for that, because nothing has changed. What has changed is the way that people in this country feel about this. One person got coronavirus in the NBA. One person. Rudy Gobert got coronavirus, and it shut down the NBA. And to a certain extent, shut down the rest of the country from a sports perspective. One case. And it shut everything down. Now we're getting new cases every day. The Bucks closed their facilities. We've seen so many other teams close their facilities because of cases. We've seen travel party members having coronavirus. And things continue forward because there's been a fundamental change of the way that people view this virus in this country. People are done with coronavirus. And it's even scarier, people are done acting like coronavirus is a thing. And thank God local governments are now issuing policies that it's illegal to not wear your mask in public. Thank God. Because then maybe it'll go down. I mean, we're absolutely 2 weeks from now going to see probably the highest number of cases in one day that we've ever seen. 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks from July 4th, that's what we'll see. I would almost bet on it. So 2 weeks from now, we're going to see the highest cases in one day. We'll probably see the highest cases that we've ever seen in Orlando, highest cases we've ever seen in Florida. And the NBA will be 5 days, 10 days away from the restart of their season. And look, I would love for the NBA to come back. You have no idea how much I would love for the NBA to come back. But it just makes no sense. It really doesn't. The closer and closer we get, the farther and farther away we get from common sense. But it's clear that the NBA doesn't really care how many cases there are, as long as they feel like they're controlling it within their league. Controlling it within their league before the players get there, controlling it within their league when everyone gets to the bubble. Because if it scared them, how many cases there are, if it really mattered how many cases there were in the United States, how many cases there were in Florida, and how many cases there were in Orlando, the NBA would have already announced that they are suspending, pushing back further, cutting it out altogether, the return of the NBA season, and just preparing for the next. Not that things are going to be different when it's time for the next NBA season, but we can cross that bridge when we get there. The highest cases ever in this country. And it's not even close. And we don't even have New York to be the ones that everyone can point to. Yeah, one in every 3 people in this country who is getting coronavirus, they're from New York. It's okay. Now most of the cases aren't in New York, because they cracked down on it. Now Connecticut, New York, now you're not even allowed to go there unless you've quarantined for 2 weeks prior. Now, how you actually enforce that is beyond me, and quite frankly, I'm not sure that's enforceable. Unless you're just going to turn it into, basically a border patrolled state. But I don't think anybody's going to put the resources into that. It makes no sense. It really doesn't, and that sucks. Believe me, I would love for it to make perfect sense. But people aren't wearing their masks, so it's spreading like wildfire, like it has been. But it's spreading like wildfire to an extent that it hasn't yet before. 52,000 new cases on July 5th. We're now 2,776,366 confirmed COVID-19 cases and 129,000 deaths in the U.S. 129,000. And we're opening restaurants. Everyone's going back to life as normal. And this is the result. Because the way that people feel about coronavirus and the fact that they're tired of dealing with it has changed the way that COVID-19 is thought about in this country. Even though coronavirus didn't change at all, we didn't really figure out how to help people feel better if they get it. The only thing we figured out was how to slow it down. And because we figured out how to slow it down, people decided that they were just going to go back to what they had been doing. Even though that it had slowed down because of what we were doing. But we decided we were just going to stop caring about it and move on and live with it. The only problem is that people aren't living with it. But the NBA continues on. The people in this country continue on like it's not there. Most of them, a lot of them. And we're all paying the price. But the point being that it doesn't seem like the NBA cares. Or at least that's not the biggest influencer on if the season will actually happen. Because if it was, they would have already canceled it. Coming up next on the Jmull Show, we'll talk 5 questions about the NBA's return. Because listen, I would love to talk about the NBA's return, and we're going to talk about the NBA's return. 5 questions surrounding it. And then we'll also get to the Penn State men's basketball and Bryson DeChambeau coming up a little while later. But you're watching the Jmull Show on 110sportsmedia.com. All right, we're back on the Jmull Show. Thanks so much for joining us on a Monday. It's nice outside. It's nice where you are. It's my birthday. It's a good day. The family brought in a breakfast sandwich with a candle stuck in it. Look at this. Look at this candle. Thing's huge. Look at that thing. Massive. It's a great breakfast sandwich. Thank you for asking. I'm very appreciative of you asking, reaching out about my breakfast sandwich. It was awesome. It was awesome. We started the show with the NBA and how little sense it makes to return, even though they continue to push on, and we'll leave that there for a little while because I want to talk return. This is why. I think this is part of why the NBA is continuing to move forward, is that they also think there's a sense of responsibility, a sense of escape that they can bring to people, and I think there's certainly some value to that. I'm just not sure it's worth the risk. But we have 5 questions to get through, and we talked about this at length on the J Series podcast. You see it on the right side of your screen there. You can subscribe to that podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Follow us on Twitter at JSeriesPod as part of the 110 Sports Media Network. But I wanted to touch on it on this show because I thought it was a great conversation and wanted to bring it to this show as well. But make sure you go and listen to that on the J Series podcast as well, along with Josh Doring, my 110 Sports Media colleague and very close friend. But we'll start with number 1. We got 5 questions. Let's run through them. Number 1, what is the impact of the environment and the situation surrounding the NBA resume? And so, of course, this is obvious what I'm talking about. We're talking about the new format. We're talking about the bubble. We're talking about the break. All of those things. And so I want to start with one thing. We're going to find out. There are 2 components to playing on the road. The first component is not being at home. And so just the idea of not playing on your home floor. Not necessarily in front of your fans, but just on your home floor, the place that you do a lot of practicing, the place that you live, the place that you put up a lot of shots, the place that you play the majority of your games. Half of your games. But you play far more games there than you play anywhere else. So there's just a comfort level there that you're not going to have anywhere else. That makes sense. The other part of playing on the road is hostility. And what the fans can do, the 6th man, the 12th man, 10th man, whatever sport you fancy. Here it's the 6th man. Is playing on the road so uncomfortable for a team because of the hostility? Or because of the discomfort of playing in a different arena, different rims, different floor, just different feel? Because we're going to find out which one, for some teams, is more important. Because a team like the Philadelphia 76ers, the Sixers were the best home team in the NBA. 29-2, I think, when the NBA was suspended. But 10-24 on the road. 10-24. There were teams at the bottom of the Western Conference and Eastern Conference who had more road wins than the Sixers. I think it was the Timberwolves or something. I'll look it up while we're chatting here. But 10-24. 10-24 on the road. So what we're going to find out is it being in Philly that makes them good? Or is it the hostility of the road that makes them bad? Or is it just the discomfort of rims they're not used to? Because if it's the latter, then in theory they're going to be even better. But if it's the former, then they just never get to play at home. And then instead of just playing half of games where you're really comfortable and half games where you're not, you're just always not going to be comfortable. Of course, you get to a point where you're familiar with those courts that it starts to feel more familiar. But there are 3 courts. So you're switching in between the 3. Even if the 76ers go to as many games as you possibly can, you play 36. 28 playoff games. If every series goes to 7, you win all of them. And then 8 regular season games. So 3 courts, 36 games. The most you can, if you balance everything equally, it's 12 games apiece. Now, it won't be quite like that because the Sixers will make the playoffs and they're going to play games on national television. So it's going to be mostly the two courts that are made for national television. But the point is still the same. So that's the first. How will home court advantage or the lack thereof impact? And the second thing, and two more things. Second, it's going to be really hard to see a high level of basketball just because it's not your routine. Your routine is being made for you out of the interest of health and safety for players. It's the NBA's routine, not your routine. And I think there's something to be said for the lack of excitement in the arena itself, because it's just going to feel like a really intense pickup game. And you've seen videos over the summers of players in really high-level pickup games, and it's not the same, I know, and they're playing for a championship and not just bragging rights, and I get that. I'm not saying that the two are equal, but I'm saying it's a lot easier to get up for a game when you hear 19,000 fans building up in momentum as people start to file in before a game. And here it feels like an AAU game where you're just sort of waiting for the game in front of you to finish, which is an interesting concept. And then don't forget, it's kind of like a 2-month road trip. The teams that are there through the finals are going to be there for 2.5 months. It's basically a 2.5 month road trip. I don't know about you, but I never sleep well in a hotel. Never. I'm sure there are players like that. And sleeping in your own bed and in the comfort of your own home, I think is an undervalued thing. Not just the travel, which of course that's the other side of this, is that there will be no travel in the playoffs, and that will certainly help players. And the last thing is, there are three most important things here, and the games are third so far. Health and safety is one. All of the stuff about which places are closing down, what the NBA is doing about health and safety, and then social justice and making sure that the NBA and its players are at the forefront of that fight. Because that's also really important. You know? And then it comes the games. So part of this environment is that the games just aren't going to matter as much from power, because it usually is. There's nothing to talk about, nothing to worry about, nothing to do other than the games once you get to this point of the season in a normal season. That's just not the case this time. Number 2, helped and hurt the most, and we'll move a little faster here. The 76ers are helped the most, in my opinion. Ben Simmons was hurt. Joel Embiid was just coming back from injury when the season was suspended. They've both had time to get in better shape. I've heard that both of them are, Ben Simmons in really good shape. Joel Embiid should be in better shape than he was the last time we saw him. And now you've had basically a full off season once they actually get to the July 30th when this actually resumes. You've had basically a full off season to play 36 games at most. And even Joel Embiid, after an off season worth of rest, can go hard for 36 games and not burn out in the playoffs. Helped also any team that had some sort of injured star and was trying to get their feet back under him, players like Zion and the Pelicans, PG just getting more time with the Clippers after his shoulder. Porzingis was finally healthy, and he and Luka just got more chances to be together and to build that chemistry. I think the Memphis Grizzlies, a team holding on to an 8 seed, people around here in Memphis are so upset that the Grizzlies they have a tough schedule. They were going to have a tough schedule anyway, so get over that. It's a tough 8-game schedule with 3.5 game lead, rather than a tough 17-game schedule with a 3.5 game lead. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why that's helpful. And then the teams that are hurt the most, Lakers and Bucks, just because the Bucks were gonna have home court advantage through the playoffs, best record in the NBA, and now they have no such thing. And the Lakers the same. It's the first LeBron team in years that really valued the regular season because they had something to prove, and they valued it essentially for nothing because the 1 seed and the 8 seed, from a home court advantage perspective, the 1 seed has no advantage over the 8 seed, which is just the reality of the situation. It's not a huge deal because I think in a 7-game series, the better team is going to win more times than not, even on a neutral court. but it's tough for the most hurt. The Bucks and the Lakers are up there just for that reason as well. The Pacers, an all-star like Oladipo deciding not to play is tough and changes the competition in the Eastern Conference, specifically with the Sixers actually, who are tied with the Pacers right now in the Eastern Conference. Number 3, players I'm most excited for. 1, Nikola Jokic. He's skinny. What's it going to do to his game? Is he going to be a step and a half quicker on defense? Because if he is, then that's, I think, a big deal. And his offensive game isn't about power necessarily. I mean, he's 7 feet tall and was 250 pounds. So to a certain extent, you throw that weight around a little bit. But he's all about finesse, passing. It's much more finesse-centered offensive game. So I don't think that will have a big impact on that. But if his defense is half a step, he'd become a competent defender. I mean, but nobody is good at defending Joel Embiid, but that's where he would really, if he really has to bump and get dirty with somebody in the paint, then that's where you get in trouble with Jokic. But I'm really intrigued to see what his transformation does, because he looks kind of sick. I don't know, everybody's seen that picture at this point, but he looks a little sick. Embiid, for all of the reasons that I just pointed out, is he in shape, and can he go all 36 games, max, just because he's had a lot of time to rest, and it's not that many games. Jason Tatum. Listen, if Jason Tatum is close to the level he was, 30 points per game after the All-Star break, the Celtics are my team in the East. Because and here's why. And this is, the next one is teams I'm most excited for, and Boston is one of them, if Tatum is to the level that he is. Because here's a couple things about Boston. Gordon Hayward gets more time to recover from injury, which is great for him and for Boston. The Bucks do not want to see the Celtics, because you've got Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who are competent defenders, who are really good defenders. Competent. If you put competent on Jokic, you got to put more on Tatum and Brown. Really good defenders. And here's a couple things. They're both quick enough to stay in front of Giannis and big enough to give him at least some trouble at the front of the rim, which are two things that Giannis will struggle with until he figures out how to shoot the ball consistently enough that players won't just meet him at the foul line. And at this point, he hasn't gotten there yet. So there's two of them to guard Giannis, Brown and Tatum. And then you've got Kemba Walker, who, no matter who you're playing against, you're not feeling bad about Kemba Walker being your point guard, because he's a leader and he makes his teammates better. And those are the two kind of guys. Those are the two attributes that you want from a point guard in the playoffs. It just is. And I'll take Kemba Walker every day of the week and twice on Sunday over Kyrie Irving. And I think that matters a lot. And then finally, James Harden, because he also got an offseason. And there's no doubt that he can go 36 games. It's, can he carry the load in the playoffs when he's just run out of energy because he pushed so much emphasis on the regular season? He can put 150% of effort in all 36 games, max 36 games, and still have the energy, because we've seen him go all out for 82 games before, and then he runs out in the playoffs because the defense gets a little better. So we're going to find out if it's James Harden's, the defense in the NBA that slows James Harden down in the playoffs, or if it's his fatigue. Because if it's his fatigue, I don't think he's going to have any of that in this playoffs. And we might see a different James Harden as we get deeper into the NBA playoffs. So it's very intriguing. And also the team I'm most excited for, along with Boston, the Memphis Grizzlies. Because we're to the point with the Grizzlies where we're very close to the team that we could see from Memphis for the next 4 or 5 years. Of course, you want Ja and Jaren to be there for the next decade. But now you've got your guy who can guard the best perimeter player on the other team. Because you've got Justice Winslow, and now he's healthy after being traded near the deadline in that trade that got Iguodala off of the Grizzlies. So you've got Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Dylan Brooks, Jonas Valanciunas, Justice Winslow. You got Brandon Clark coming off the bench, who's clearly, he's a model of efficiency and bounciness at Gonzaga, and he's a model of efficiency, man. and bounce in the NBA. So you're going to get a really good look, I think, at this Grizzlies team that you're going to see for the next several years at least. And like I said, you hope you get John Jaren for more, but you get a little more. But you get a really good idea, a really nice picture of what this could be for the Grizzlies for the next few seasons. And then finally, how should this NBA season, how should this champion be remembered, and how will it be remembered? Because I think they can be two different things. We'll start with the obvious, that the champion's going to be remembered differently than any champion has ever been remembered before. And I think that unless it's somebody like, pick a team, the Nets, maybe the Heat, even though, the Heat have been a top half Eastern Conference team all season, but I don't think anybody's expecting the Heat to go to the finals. Or pick somebody at the back half, like the Mavericks or somebody, or if the Grizzlies go to the Western Conference Finals, something, sort of out of blue, somebody other than the LA teams, let's be honest. Unless somebody other than the two LA teams, the Bucks, and then I'll throw the Celtics and maybe the Sixers in there. And throw Toronto in there if you want to, but I don't think they have the scoring and the playmaking in the playoffs that they would need. But if one of those teams wins, it's going to be, like, this season won't be remembered for who won the title. It'll just be remembered as the COVID-19 season. And I think we've gotten to the point where we played enough games that it doesn't matter, that it won't be an asterisk, because, like, there's going to be one next to whoever wins the World Series. Whoever wins the World Series is never going to be looked at like a real champion. 60 games, it fundamentally changes the way that baseball is played. Fundamentally. An 11-game win streak is less valuable in a 162-game season than like a 6-game win streak will be in this 60-game season. Like, that's crazy. And you win 6 straight games and you're in the driver's seat for the rest of the season, and that's just, it's a sport built to be played like a marathon, and it's the team who manages the ebbs and flows of a 162-game season the best that ultimately comes out on top. And you just don't have to do that. Now you're playing less games than the NBA. So I don't think it'll be remembered differently because the season was shorter, because it isn't really short. It's a total of 9 games, and I don't think any team that wins a title will have to do less than another team would have to win the title. Unless big names back. And I think, Victor Oladipo backing out is ultimately not that big of a deal, but, Dwight Howard backing out, if they lose in the Western Conference Finals in Game 7, you might think, okay, if they had Dwight Howard, maybe it's a little different. So if big names start to gain some traction here, then maybe that's where you get to the point where, okay, maybe there will be a little bit more impact. But we'll see. So that's 5 questions regarding the NBA's return. I really hope there's a season, and I spent the open talking about why there shouldn't be, and I believe that there shouldn't be. I think we're to the point where it doesn't make sense, and I'm fine owning that. I'm completely fine owning that. But I would still really enjoy a season. I would really enjoy a season. So that's 5 questions. Hopefully it happens. But if things continue the way that they are right now, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. But coming up next, we'll talk a little bit about Bryson DeChambeau, but then I want to get to Pat Chambers and what happened at Penn State, with the Penn State men's basketball program and some of the light that was shined on that program here this morning. But that's coming up next. You're listening to The Jmull Show. Thank you so much for joining us here on a Monday. It's The Jmull Show on 110sportsmedia.com. Welcome back to the Jmull Show on a Monday. Thank you so much for joining us on this Monday morning. I hope you had a safe and happy 4th of July. Really did. I hope you were safe. You know, there are definitely ways to celebrate the 4th of July while being safe. So I hope everyone had a great one. Hopefully there was some nice weather wherever you were. No fireworks, which is, you know, a little sad. In most places, you know, where I was, there were lots of people in their backyards, and some pretty big ones. But you know, no fireworks generally, because that tends to bring a bunch of people together. So can't be doing that. But what I want to get to next is a really unfortunate incident that just can't happen. And you know, I want to give a shout out to Rasir Bolton, who's now an Iowa State guard who was at Penn State and then transferred, you know, kind of inexplicably. You know, it wasn't clear, it wasn't readily obvious why he was transferring. So I want to talk about what he put on Twitter and published about the Penn State men's basketball program and their head coach, Pat Chambers. So I'm going to pull this up on the screen right now, and I want to read this real quick. And it says, "A noose around my neck. For the past year, many have questioned why I left Penn State after my freshman year. I was a scholarship athlete on the men's basketball team. I got playing time. I started part of the season, and I was on the dean's list. I formed many relationships at Penn State that I still maintain today. However, no one ever stops to consider that there is more to a college athlete than the sport. We are human. We are young men and women, and in my case, I'm a young black man first. A noose around my neck is why I left Penn State. Head coach Patrick Chambers, the day after his one-game suspension in January 2019, and talking to me referenced a noose around my neck, a noose symbolic of lynching, defined as one of the most powerful symbols directed at African Americans, invoking the history of lynching, slavery, and racial terrorism due to the interactions with Coach. I knew this was no slip of the tongue. I reported this immediately to my academic advisor. He says that he spoke to the AD's office. His parents came to the AD's office to talk with Coach Chambers multiple times. He said, I was provided one meeting and a phone number to text with a psychologist. I was taught ways to deal with Coach Chambers' personality type. Coach Chambers never apologized. He said that he was from the North and wasn't aware. Subtle repercussions followed. Some teammates were told I couldn't be trusted, and I was told the team didn't trust me. I wasn't all in and loyal. Because I stood up for myself during my final player-coach meeting in April 2019, Coach Chambers told me that he was really impressed with how well-spoken and organized my parents were. Yet another subtle insult. I only heard from the Penn State's integrity office in reference to my situation 6 months later, once I was at a new school requesting a waiver. I tell this story because it is not alleged, it was admitted and documented. I was provided what my family and I consider surface-level resources while still finishing the season, practicing and participating in team events under Coach Chambers. Had I or my parents reacted differently, it would have only hurt me, and had I quit, it would have only hurt me. I chose to use my head. I wasn't the first, and I know I wasn't the last. Everyone's position to speak out isn't the same, so I'm only speaking for myself. There's a serious need to change in the way players are protected and helped across the country when faced with these situations. Surface level resources are not good enough. In most cases, it is the coach who's protected while the player is left to deal with it or leave. Be the change you want to see. So here's a couple things I want to talk about here. First of all, I think it's underestimated how difficult it can be to bring this kind of thing to light. And so, first of all, to Rasir Bolton, who's now at Iowa State, it's really quite a powerful thing to come out and talk about this, because like he says in this document, that clearly it was dealt with subtly. Clearly it was done. I mean, nobody has ever heard about this. Clearly there was no public apology. And of course it happened personally and not in front of everybody. So Pat Chambers didn't feel the need to apologize publicly. So first of all, I think that's important to recognize. Secondly, this is really bad, and this is really this is the kind of thing that will no longer be able to slide, because now, and we spent some time talking about this, now college athletes feel empowered to speak out about their coach, the coach who's making millions of dollars to coach a university, and is quite frankly more valuable to the school than the player, because the coach is the one that's going to be there longer. And clearly, as you see here, the resources given to Rasir Bolton weren't nearly as good as they should have been, and this incident wasn't taken nearly as seriously. There wasn't even an apology, according to Rasir. Really, this is another example of players, saying that I'm not going to stand idly by anymore while my coach does this. I'm not going to let my coach get by on this anymore, and I'm not going to let my university treat me like this. And this is so, Pat Chambers looks so horrible here, and looks like someone who doesn't care about his players, and who doesn't really care about the relationship that he has with his players as men, not just as basketball players. Because I'm sure a noose around my neck has something to do with some basketball, and I'm not gonna, don't quote me on that. I have absolutely no idea what it was actually in context to, but it's not out of this world to suggest that it was probably in the context of some sort of basketball related conversation. But like I said, I don't know. Either way, it's inappropriate. It's not allowed. It's bullcrap. It's horrifying. And it shows how deaf Pat Chambers seems to be to these issues. And then to never get an apology from Pat Chambers, because not getting an apology screams that Pat Chambers doesn't really understand what he did. And that's where this country needs to improve more than anything else, is not assuming that and not assuming that you understand where a player or a person is coming from, because it results in things like this. It doesn't matter if you meant it harmlessly. It doesn't matter if that's not how you meant it. When it creates this sort of feeling from anybody, but specifically in this country, young black men, and in this case, a young black man. And then to subtly drop hints, insults, things like really impressed with how well-spoken and organized your parents were. That's, everyone knows what that is implying, and what your initial assumptions were about a young black man's black mother and father. All of these things, and to write it off to coach's personality type. I don't care what your personality type is. Couldn't care less. Nobody's personality type gives them a free pass on this kind of thing. Nobody. You know what this would need to be chalked up to? Coach Chambers' inability to relate to a black man and use his ignorance to justify his racism. That's what we're talking about here. Saying he's from the North and wasn't aware? You're so full of it. Like, you can't possibly take yourself seriously saying that sort of thing. Absolutely disgusting. But a true testament to the empowerment that college athletes still now have, because part of what this push for social reform in this country over the last couple months has done, has given people who otherwise might feel antsy about speaking out because they know that black, white, Asian all races, for really one of the first times, are all behind each other on this. And now, of course, there are always people who are exceptions to that. But the protests in this country weren't just the black people. It was blacks and whites and every single race in this country. You saw them all. And now athletes who might have felt on the fence about coming out with something like this know that there's an entire country of people now who are openly supporting them. And the more that we get this kind of thing into the light, the more, the quicker and more pressure there will be on institutions like Penn State to make changes and to be a bigger part of making this country a better place, because that's where the momentum really gets going, is when big institutions with the money start to have pressure on them and start to really be a part of this change, because there's just a big difference between that and people, even if it's a big contingent of people coming together and making a push for social equality. So this is horrible. This needs to stop happening, and hopefully in this country we start to move to the point where this doesn't happen anymore. But this is really bad for Penn State, and it needs to be something that is taken extremely seriously, and there need to be very big consequences for Pat Chambers and his actions at Penn State, because this is also a man who's been there for a long time, and we can make our assumptions and read in between the lines of what that could possibly mean about the culture of Penn State basketball while Pat Chambers has been there. But we needed to talk about that, so thank you for listening. And to wrap up the show here in a moment, we're going to take a quick break and then come back with Bryson DeChambeau and the rest of the FYIs. You're listening to the Jmull Show on a Monday on 110sportsmedia.com. All right, we're back on the Jmull Show, wrapping up real quick. Thank you so much for joining us on a Monday. I hope you had a great 4th of July weekend and a safe one, and I hope you have a really solid start to the week. So thank you for making us part of your day. If you have, hopefully make this hour a little bit better on this Monday morning. But FYI, we don't have a whole lot of time left. We'll get to FYIs pretty quickly here. First of all, Bryson DeChambeau won the Rocket Mortgage Classic this weekend in Detroit. Bryson is huge. If you guys don't follow golf, Bryson basically went and became a linebacker. 240 pounds. He's huge. Absolutely massive. And this experiment of brute strength is really working. And there's 4 tournaments since the PGA Tour returned: T3, T6, T8, and then he won the most recent one. 14 rounds in the 60s out of a possible 16. The other 2 were 70s, so he was right on the line there. He hasn't had a round over par, that's for sure, since the PGA Tour returned. He's been first or second in driving distance at every tournament with Cameron Champ. He's first in strokes gained off the tee on tour. And once he works on a few things, like temper, he still needs to work with his temper a little bit. He got into another scuffle with the cameraman this weekend, which I don't know if it was him overreacting or really was the cameraman's fault. I haven't read enough about that. But and then also just dial back his power a little bit. His ball speeds are ridiculous, but he needs to dial it back just a little bit. During the show, actually, FYI number 2, Nick Markakis, veteran outfielder for the Atlanta Braves, has opted out of the 2020 season. He said, and this is a quote from Markakis, "I was excited to get back to playing just as much as everybody else. I think the biggest thing is I talked to Freddie Freeman, another Braves player who has been one of the athletes who has tested positive and has really been hit hard by it, so not just an asymptomatic positive test. He's been pretty sick since Thursday, I believe." And then he said, quote, "And just hearing the way he sounded on the phone just opened my eyes." And I think this is the biggest thing to take away from it, is that players getting sick are going to impact other players just from a feelings about it perspective, because I think everybody, and part of why this has been so hard to contain, is that a lot of people are asymptomatic and a lot of people are fine, which makes people just sort of, I'm going to go about my life. I'm going to try to do my best, but I'm not really going to worry about it, because even if I get it, I'll probably be fine. Guys like Freddie Freeman, who's in better shape than any average person, and physically gifted more than any average person, getting sick like this is going to open up the eyes of other players. So I think that's where it can be iffy for sports leagues, is if one guy gets really sick rather than just testing positive, that can have a ripple effect throughout the entire league. And Freeman getting sick has had a ripple effect through his team. And FYI number 3, the last one per usual, tomorrow. Touchline Talk with Josh Doring at 11 a.m. Eastern, and then Around the Bases with Chris Brown. I'm sure Chris will talk Freddie Freeman a little bit. I'm sure he'll talk Nick Markakis and that, as well as we're getting even closer to the beginning of the baseball season. But that's tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern and 1 p.m. Eastern here on 110sportsmedia.com/live. But that's all I have for you on a Monday. Thank you so much for joining us, letting us be a part of your day, and we'll see you on Wednesday.